You've got big projects to tackle, but your day gets swallowed up by repetitive tasks and constant inquiries. It's hard to make progress when you're stuck putting out fires. That's where Element 451's AI assistants come in. Acting like an extra set of hands, you get your time back for the high-impact projects. Ready to reclaim your time? Visit element451.com/AI team to learn more.
Welcome to the Hired Geek Podcast, where we explore the impact of EdTech on the student experience with engaging, fun, and relevant conversations that honor the wide range of work happening all across the higher ed ecosystem. I'm your host, Dustin Ramsdale, Community Engagement Lead at Pathify. Join me every week for discussions with some of the best minds in education technology. The Hired Geek Podcast is a proud member of the Enrollify Podcast Network, a robust collection of shows designed to help higher education professionals like you grow every day. Explore all of our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. Welcome back, everyone, to another wonderful episode of the Higher Ed Geek Podcast. We are here with somebody from Transact Campus that I know of them. I know generally what they do, but I feel like we've had a good string of episodes lately of that I feel like I'm getting as much out of as I'm sure our audience is. So I'm excited for the learning to happen here. We're going to be talking about Transact and also more specifically about digital IDs in higher education. But we'll start as we always do. Rasheed, if you want to briefly introduce yourself and your professional background, and then we'll get to more of what Transact does and digital IDs in higher ed.
Absolutely. First off, Dustin, thank you so much for having me. Love the podcast and honored to be on the show here today. So a little bit about myself. I am a Senior Vice President and General Manager for our Campus ID and Commerce Solutions at Transact. In short, I get to run the business that provides a lot of the systems and solutions that students use across college and universities, really across the globe. I came to Transact over 4 years ago. Before that, I spent the majority of my career in sort of two main verticals. The first vertical, I was in defense. So I got to work very closely with Army and Air Force, bringing new technology and solutions into the military. I actually really loved that space. For me, it was special. I always had a great respect for military, and in another life, I think I would have loved to serve. Just didn't happen for me this time around. And actually kind of a fun fact. So a friend of mine that I went to college with, I went to University of San Diego, but Matt Dominic, he and I, a friend that we both went to engineering school. He ended up going into the Navy and flew F-18s and other jets for the Navy. But it was kind of fun this year in March. We were actually at our Transact T360 event. I got to watch him get launched into space. He's actually an astronaut for NASA now, and spent over 6 months in the International Space Station. So that was kind of a fun thing for me to see. So, but anyway, that aside, my time in defense wasn't quite as interesting as Matt, but I found it very rewarding. And then, a little over 10 years ago, I moved into public transit. So I worked for a company and led an engineering team where we built all the transit technologies for some of the largest cities in the U.S. So think of the New York Transit System, Chicago, Bay Area, just to name a few. And so, got to interface a lot with customers and got to see our systems in work. And then, I love to tell stories. So I got one other kind of fun story.
Go for it. They're great.
Yeah. So, as you could imagine, like building the modern New York transit system was a pretty big project, like one of the biggest that's ever been contemplated. And so there was a lot of, late nights and weekends. And so, oftentimes I'd bring my kids in on the weekends, and they got to interact with some of the new technology and actually have some videos and pictures of them taking transit cards and tapping the readers and going through the New York style gates. And then a few years ago, actually, I got to take my daughter to New York City for her 14th birthday. And what a trip it was to see her kind of ride on those same systems and interact with the readers and the transit gates that we were building back when I worked for Cubic and building those systems. So that was pretty cool. And now I get to work for Transact, and one of the things that I really love is I get to see the solutions that we built in operation, and really kind of help maximize that student experience. So yeah, a fun roadmap for me over the years, but love where I'm at today.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's incredible. And yeah, I appreciate the stories and everything. I think, yeah, very few of us can say, like, I personally know a astronaut, and certainly somebody where it's like they are, they've been in space or currently in space and everything. But yeah, and I think, I guess for me, like a common thread through like your story, and I guess, certainly correct me if I'm wrong, I guess, but like that idea of like, serving sort of the public good, even through sort of like these, private public partnerships and everything, even like, higher education, there are a lot of private institutions, but it is kind of the idea of like wherever you go, whatever you study, like we all kind of benefit from you being a educated citizen and having people who are gainfully employed in their careers of choice and different things like that. So I guess just that idea of like, to achieve the sort of aspirational goals of these sort of public goods of public transportation, or our sort of homeland security, defense, or whatever else, or just people who serve in the military and everything that they do. It does take just a network and sort of a support system of folks who can kind of like specialize in whatever it is that they're doing and everything. And I think we've seen, and even just in my brief career so far in higher education, like over the past 10 years, I think it has been like we kind of passed through the Rubicon, or sort of had the watershed moment of like, okay, like really sort of an embrace and acceptance and normalization of relations between like, these private, often companies like ed tech companies that are supporting the work of higher education institutions to help them achieve their goals. And I guess, knowing that you are one of those sort of premier partners of higher education, if you could explain a little bit, just if folks aren't familiar, a bit about the work that Transact Campus does kind of broadly. And then obviously we're going to kind of focus a little bit more on, an aspect of that, but kind of give folks a little introduction to Transact.
Yeah, I would love to. So kind of keying off what you were just saying there, I think it comes down to a commitment and a passion for what you do. And starting, off kind of explaining some about Transact, I'll start off with, Transact through, a few different names and companies over the years has been serving our clients for nearly 50 years. Certainly the technology and the modern digital IDs that we have today were significantly different than they were in years past. But effectively, our mission at Transact is to really focus on providing modern campus experiences for students, helping universities and colleges across the globe maximize the student experience for the population of our new learners and students that are going to be emerging into the workplace, and kind of giving back to society. And also for us focus on helping those administrators that are managing across those campuses with their operational efficiencies. What can we do to help them? Because, they're serving a greater amount of students and having to do a lot with the resources that they have. And certainly, so, we're very focused on, okay, what can we do to help that student experience? And then two, what can we do to help the administration that's supporting that? Our solutions today in higher ed support over 1,800 different colleges and universities. We are global and we have solutions across the globe. I would say we're predominantly North America. We have a lot of solutions here in the U.S., but certainly have technology that works, globally as well. We've been very focused on mobile first kind of technology. So there's sort of four tenets that I always fall back on as kind of key and at the core of what we do at Transact. And it's really kind of being mobile first, reaching that population of students, and frankly, administration where they're most comfortable, which is having mobile technology on the go, having access to the technology solutions where they need to access it. Streamlining operations, as I kind of mentioned, is a key pillar for us. Safety and security, and I mean this in kind of two flavors. One, digital security, but also, personal safety for students and faculty and staff. And then being a leader and pioneer. And, kind of as we talk about, digital credentials, that's, something that's been very close to the Transact legacy and being first to market with a number of solutions. But, in short, like, very focused on the higher education domain, serving over 1,800 colleges, about 12 million students and administrators use our solutions. And, something that we're very proud of is the digital ID we've provisioned over 2 million credentials over 100 different campuses. So reaching some scale with that solution as well.
Yeah, and I feel like that's one sort of like kind of aspect of digital transformation that's been sort of, kind of crashing into and washing over campuses all over the country. There's a lot of different versions or kind of details or, aspects of what that looks like. But digital IDs, I feel like I don't know, it's been maybe like just sort of this like well-kept secret or something. Like, I just feel like I haven't like heard or seen a lot of people talking about it, but it does feel like it's sort of this like just really like earnestly transformational piece of the sort of just like the day-to-day, kind of building access and like going to the dining, like all these sort of like just really foundational pieces of a student experience. And even like you said, for faculty, staff, and others as well. But like, it's so foundational, and sometimes it is like, I think there's like things that aren't as maybe like dazzly and all that just like struggle to get the spotlight shown on them. But I'm glad that we are doing so today to kind of talk more about it, because it's definitely something that I'm really kind of geeking out about and sort of excited about. But I guess, could you just start out with like giving us some context as to the current moment? You're sort of talking a bit about kind of the scale that Transact is working on and everything. And I guess for like digital IDs in particular, are you seeing that like adoption at, this moment in time? We're recording this in October of 2024. Like, have you seen that like, a lot of partners are adopting it? Are they requesting it? Or like, you're having a lot of conversation? What's sort of like the current context, I guess, of just sort of like how much of this is sort of, coming up, I guess, day to day in terms of like what you all are kind of focusing on?
Yeah, I am. So the short answer is we're seeing a lot of interest, a lot of momentum in the digital student ID. I'll say this, I was kind of talking about one of the core tenets at Transact is being a leader and a pioneer. The transformation, at least from the digital student ID for us, this has been over 15 years in the making. So, back, 15 years or so ago, this is before my time, but I'm thankful that these kinds of things happened. Our teams got together and go, okay, what is the future of student life going to look like? How are the students going to interact with technology? And there was a pretty bold bet made on NFC technology being something that would proliferate out into the future. And, today that seems obvious, but, 15 plus years ago, it wasn't as obvious. And so the company kind of set on a course to build NFC technology into some of the hardware solutions that we built as first party, and then go out and partner with others in the industry that were very, forward thinking and excited to work on NFC. And then we literally knocked on the door over and over until finally kind of swayed some of the wallet providers to say like, hey, a digital student ID in wallet is something that students and colleges would want. And I will say that, in the onset, that wasn't something that was, it took a little convincing, you could say. And I'm very thankful that those conversations happened and we are where we are today. But then, we launched our first set of clients in 2018, and then, kind of slowly uptick over a number of years to where we are today with over 100 clients live and another 50 that are in work to go live. And I see day in and day out where, the conversations that I get to have with universities and a lot of the CTO, the CIOs, or even the directors of card office or student affairs is they're looking, okay, what can I do to talk to the students that are coming to my campus? Show to them that we care about technology and providing that out to their student experience. And then at the same time, Rasheed, what can we do that can help us operate our system more efficiently? And it's a beautiful intersection, the digital student ID, between something that talks to students, but also helps administrators with their campus experience. And I'll give you kind of an example of that from the administration. So if you think about students coming on campus and some universities that have, tens of thousands of students, can you imagine trying to get that incoming set of the freshman class, like all a plastic card or a physical key to get into dorm rooms? The queues and the lines and the waiting for all that stuff is monumental. And literally I have story after story where they describe how they did this before they had the digital student ID. And then once they have, it's literally it connects to the system of record for the students that are coming in, and students get access to it simultaneously and instantaneously. They have to go through a provisioning process, of course, which takes, less than a minute, but they get it so fast, and it doesn't require a big administration. So, what I'm seeing is that the understanding of what student ID can be for the campus administration, and then of course the student experience, is driving a lot of momentum in the space that, I don't think was always there, but certainly is today.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of details, and hopefully we can kind of just give a little bit of time to as many as possible here of just sort of like, what makes this work so important. But I'll take a quick detour that relates back to what you were talking about with your background. For context, just with, again, like when we're recording this in times, that's why it's so fresh in my brain. I was in New York City for EdTech Week, doing some kind of like press coverage and going to some sessions and networking and all that. Took the subway a lot. And like, all the times in the past I've gone was like with the, yellow Metro card and swiping it. And yeah, sometimes it takes it, sometimes it doesn't. You have to like make sure you've like, put money on it and everything. But now the ubiquity of the Omni system of like using, whatever wallet system on your phone, use whatever card you want, pay per ride and everything. And they've got like, these like, ads promoting it where, they're like, yeah, like use it. Like, cause I'm sure it just gets better, the more people use it, and they're trying to incentivize that. But like, it just like was to me, the idea of like the nature of the New York City subway system is like a huge system used by so many, so beloved, so like, emblematic of like the culture of that city and everything. The fact that they now have, I think like predominantly for the subway, not necessarily like buses and other things, but like the idea that like, I mean, every station I went in had that like Omni NFC way to get in and everything. And I was just like, this is so impressive. This is so amazing. This is so awesome. And like knowing that, I think, higher ed still has a lot of room to grow, but I think it's one of those things where you get kind of like a glimpse at the future of what could be, in a completely different context. But like, it is kind of that idea of like, you're working with these sort of like behemoth, like, monumental sort of like, complex little cities of like a, higher ed campus and everything, that it does take sort of a big undertaking at times to, get this to go live and everything else. But, yeah, I mean, it was just really incredible to see. So I don't know, like, was that something that you like worked on or were aware of, or sort of like, because I thought that was so cool, and I guess like kind of a neat way to kind of tie in what we're talking about now to something that you'd kind of been acquainted with in the past.
I love that you brought up Omni. So when I was referencing the modernization of New York, I was referencing Omni. And what was pretty cool is, I mean, the longevity of the system before Omni it's amazing. I mean, that system, it was in operation for 25, 30 years. And the Metro card with the mag stripe, and then moving them to the fully contactless experience was incredible. What I love about the interrelation is you start thinking about what's all in wallet, right? You've got the transit system, which big cities like Bay Area, New York, Chicago, London, they all have the contactless experience, and that's something that people are getting used to. You've got credit cards and wallets, which, now that's standard. You've got student ID and wallet. You've got governments moving driver's license and wallet. I mean, the wallet is sort of front and center across a lot of intersection with people using that technology to interact in their day-to-day lives. And I think what I love about what we're seeing in higher ed is that intersection is proliferating. And, like you said, it's no small undertaking to make that change. And I think some of the, administrators and the leaders on different campuses, they go like, this is something big. And, I think the thing that I would stress to them is that, one, the students are ready for it. They're excited, and I've got some data that I can share with you. But also, the course has been paved. Like there's others that have kind of gone on this journey. A lot of the technology is seamless and kind of streamlined. We've seen like good outcomes. the time is ready. And so I think now is kind of the sweet spot for that for student ID.
Yeah, and I think that there's so many institutions in the U.S. and knowing that like most of them are not willing or able to be these sort of like bleeding edge, like early prototyping guinea
Yeah,
pigs for like whatever sort
yeah,
of digital technology and stuff. But like you said, it's like you can now like follow the leader. Like there are people that have helped to lead the way and can be role models for others. And so yeah, like you said, like it is a sort of coalescing of I think institutions being in a good place to like contour and sort of adapt and respond to the student demands, and that there is continuing to be much more kind of case studies or examples that they could sort of like reference and learn from and everything. So and you mentioned sort of like the operational efficiencies in terms of like what makes this work so important from your perspective. So certainly if you want to expand on that, go for it. But I guess it could also be a good opportunity if you want to talk about sort of like the convenience factor for students, or any other sort of
yeah.
detail and sort of color that you can put into just sort of like what makes this work so important, of like why someone would kind of go under this sort of like massive undertaking to kind of make this sort of paradigm shift.
It's a great question. I mean, for one, we like to have a lot of hypothesis around things that we think would be good solutions in the market. We do a lot of voice of the customer around colleges and universities, and we also do a lot of research with students. And so in a recent research study that we did, we interviewed a number of high school students coming into university, early university years, so then year 1, year 2, later, kind of year 3, year 4, and then recent graduates, and asked them a number of questions about their, what they're looking for, what their experience, what they would like their experience to be like, and what they use on decision-making criteria for pick where they're going to go. And we got some data that said 72% of students say that the technology is a key factor in their decision-making for their choice of school. So that's a pretty big, population. Another kind of outcome that was very interesting to me, but makes natural sense with the population, also found 75% of students say the institution's environmental impact contributes to their decision on where they want to go. So not only that sort of operational efficiency, but speaking to the students about what they care about. They do care about the tech, and they care about environmental impact. And the student ID kind of addresses both of those. I mean, we've seen with the rollout of the Transact mobile credential that we've saved over 10 tons of plastic that would have otherwise been, printed and find its way to a landfill at some point, printer ribbons, all those kind of pieces that are involved in physically printing an ID. And that's something that, I will say we didn't inherently know at the onset of this journey, 15 plus years ago, but now, like, how amazing is that? And something that, really speaks to the population of students that are going to university today. And so, kind of addressing students where they're thinking, helping universities talk to the students on their decision-making of where they want to go. And then, of course, the sustainability and environmental impact of reducing waste and plastics is something that I think is pretty important.
Yeah, and I think because it is that idea of like, yeah, like you said, like the printing for all new students, and then like often like they might get lost and you have to print them again. Like there's like those sort of things. There's just a very sort of specific cost and sort of labor and just the sort of waste that goes into all that. And I think that acknowledgement, is just a very objective one that I would hope like decision makers and students and everybody like can kind of appreciate. And I think knowing that there is certainly a lot of tailwinds here to kind of push this work forward, it is a paradigm shift. It's sort of a big change, and is going to be sort of complex to manage at times. So like to give sort of like honorable mention and acknowledgement that like all this is well and good. What do you see as sort of like holding this effort back? Is it as much maybe like political, cultural as it is like technical? Like that would be my guess. I presume is that like you have to kind of manage all those kind of things. But I'm just curious, I guess, what comes to mind of sort of like what you see holding this sort of effort back as we're kind of like obviously just kind of pushing forward. Where I imagine it would happen eventually across most campuses in this country. But like yeah, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I want to reference something you said earlier that I thought was pretty insightful, which is if you think about a technology change, there's different, everyone, all of us, whenever there's a technology, we all fall somewhere different on the change curve. Excited about it, skeptical of it, want to wait and see. There's different. We all kind of have a different stance, and I think if I go back in time, you know, not everybody wanted to be on sort of that bleeding edge of bringing this new technology to market. And I would be remiss if I didn't give credit to our first three schools that helped trailblaze us and go live with us, with Alabama, Duke, and Oklahoma. I mean, they took a little bit of a chance and going like, okay, we're going to bring student ID, digital student ID to our campus, and we're going to work with Transact, and it's never been done before, and let's see how it's going to go. Fast forward, and to your kind of point, well, like over 100 of our schools have gone live, and we'll have 150 in no time. We've seen 2 million students provision a credential. I mean, to get 2 million students to do something like that you have to be doing something right. And by the way, like there's a mobile app that accompanies the mobile credential, where you go through the provisioning process and upload your photo and kind of go through that process to kind of get that digital ID, and then you can put it in the wallet of your phone. And that app is something like any other app that gets rated. And we've seen that app rated at 4.8 stars. And I don't bring that up as a bragging moment, but just as a data point to say like, hey, outcomes do matter. And how has the adoption been? Well, we've seen the adoption rate like go up very substantially since 2018. And I'll start off by just saying the adoption rate back in 2018 was relatively low. Like we started off where, we're at 10-20% adoption rate of the rollout of the available students that could get it, were getting it. And then we kind of go through, 21, 22, we're kind of in either, pandemic time or shortly thereafter. It was still pretty low, about 20, 30%. 2023, we saw a large spike of aggregate adoption rate get over 50%. And then 2024 year to date, little drum roll, 85% adoption rate across those 100 plus schools. And so we've seen like, there's not a hesitation from students to provision that credential. And so kind of to the point earlier, and give you credit for that, is like, yeah, that the trailblazing comes with it, some inherent risk. And the thing that I would say, we're kind of past that trailblazing effort. There's any number of use cases on campus that the mobile credential can be used for. And certainly like throughout the implementation of those 100 plus schools, we've seen, okay, well, that's a new use case. Well, that's a new use case. And I'm sure we've got more to come, but we'll be able to solve those just like the ones that we've done to kind of go live. I would say that the biggest thing that I would share is, there has to be a desire and a vision for this digital ID being a key part of the student experience. And, I certainly love to speak about credential. I get the opportunity to do so with a lot of our clients. And my message is always is if you guys are ready, the credential is ready for you. The students want it. The technology is sound and solid. It provides a higher level of security. It's the most efficient operation. Your administration will get efficiencies from rolling that on your campus. You have to be ready to, want to really champion this. But once you do, it's going to be wildly successful.
Yeah, I guess what I'm hearing you say is, because it could have even be like, this whole episode could have talked about like the challenges of like launching and implementing and, digital ID system. But yeah, the idea is like whatever roadblocks there are, like we acknowledge that they're there. They're going to be unique to each campus and everything else. Like push through that, because like students want it. You're going to love it. Like it's going to be efficient. The idea of like to me, the idea of like remote management. So like, yeah, if you need to like turn something on, turn something off, like it's instantaneous. And like, so it helps with like security, and it helps with just like, convenience for students. And I remember hearing anecdotes from an institution that I worked with in a previous role, like where they had digital IDs, and that like students loved it because that idea of like having to be sort of like deprived of something, especially if like, you've got a crazy schedule and you're trying to like, eat and do whatever else. It's like, I always have my phone with me. I don't have to like worry about like forgetting my ID card or wherever else somewhere and I can't eat or I can't get into my room or, whatever else. It's like, everything just feels that much more seamless and convenient because like, it's likely that like that very expensive, likely, a new shiny smartphone that you have. It's like, I'm not leaving anywhere without that. Like that is like,
No way.
it's attached to my hip kind of thing versus just like, oh yeah, that's right. I left my like wallet or my ID card in my bag, which I left and it didn't, because like I didn't need it. I dropped it off in my room, but I went to the dining hall and it wasn't with me. So like those feel like small examples, but that's like something that's an interaction that students have constantly. And to make that sort of like moment just pleasant, delightful, smooth and everything, it's like, it just goes such a long way with like that overall student satisfaction, them just having a positive viewpoint. And like, even like what you said, like from the survey, the idea of like, students are, amidst many other aspects of them, their college going decision, that idea of like, it might even be like kind of subconscious, but like they're already interacting with your technology as they're like a prospective student. So if they're seeing like certain things like that, then that might lead them to ask me like, oh wait, well, do you have like a digital ID or this or that? Because they're maybe kind of like scratching their heads like, man, it seems like everything's kind of clunky or whatever. Like, I think that's definitely going to play in. And like, that would be really unfortunate. Like if you lost out on that student because it just like got to that tipping point of just being like, oh my gosh, like the digital experience here is just not cutting it. Like, especially if you asked about something like specific, that maybe like a sibling or a close friend has at their institution and it looks really cool and like it seems like such common sense at this point. Like you said, like we're at a moment where it's like the ubiquity of using the wallet app on your phone with everything loaded up into it. And like you said, like I mean the list is pretty long now where it's like you can have like your car insurance card like in there, the information. You've got all your like loyalty programs. You've got your transit card and all that kind of stuff. So there is now, just like that expectation that it's like, well, why wouldn't I be able to have my student ID in there? So I'll let you though have kind of like the closing thought, final word of just like we're sort of pulling this all together. Like you're already kind of giving some great advice to other higher ed leaders. So I think just bring it all together for us as you're kind of responding to this of like advice as folks are kind of navigating the student demands and whatever sort of like, climate they're in at their institution to kind of make this happen.
Yeah. I mean, look, for me personally, when there's something that I'm looking at doing, I ask for help. And I would say the biggest advice I would give, whether it's, partners in the higher ed space or executive leaders at a campus or university, is look for partners and lean on the experts that are available to help. I could say, on the Transact side, we are here to help support the journey. We have a lot of experience in the space. And, one of the things that we also, I think has been exceptionally beneficial, we will match make universities where they have questions. I mean, one of the things that I love about the space is everybody has kind of a different history, a tradition, uniqueness around their university, but there is some sort of, size and scale component to different experiences. And in a number of cases, we'll pair, colleges and universities to talk to each other. My team is here to help. We can help make connections, but really just kind of lean on some of those partners and experts in the space. I think there's a lot of things that have already, like you don't need to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of like best practices. There's some documentation. There's some go live. There's some testimony. All this kind of information is available to you, and lean on those experts. And I'm sure there's information that can kind of help guide your journey. And like I was saying earlier, on the credential front, I'd say the technology is ready when you're ready for the technology. And everyone has to come to that in their own time. But it's like you said, it's exciting time for that in the space.
Yeah, great advice, great closing thoughts. And I think my 2 cents with it too is like, even that idea of like kind of coalition building on your campus of like asking for support, asking for help is like, let's make sure we're like thinking through all the sort of like blind spots and like potential, hurdles or sort of consternation that might come from different stakeholders and stuff. Like, let's feel like we're kind of doing our due diligence and, that would certainly help things be smooth. But I think, great advice to just be like, higher ed has a great tradition of, in general, sort of like doing show and tell and being very collaborative and people kind of sharing their successes and everything with each other. So I think that's great advice, and I appreciate you kind of making yourself available to be making those connections and to help in these sort of digital transformation journeys for institutions all across the country and the world, and have ways to connect with you and Transact in the description for the episode. But just really appreciate your perspective and your time. It's great chatting with you.
Dustin, I had a great time. It was a pleasure, and hope to talk to you again soon.
The Hired Geek Podcast is a part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances you like all the other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing constantly, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks all designed to empower you to be a better hired professional. Our shows help you find your next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's best as your host. Learn from people like Jamie Hunt, Seth Odell, Dave Kibbolds, and Eddie Francis, as well as so many other of your favorite leaders in higher education. Enrollify is made possible by the support of Element 451, a leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.